Well, good morning. This is Barry Odell with the Church of Christ at Mammoth Spring Facebook page. It is Monday morning, April 10th, 2023. Hope everybody's doing well today. We are back to our study of the kings. We're looking at the divided kingdom of Israel, focusing primarily on the lives of the kings and the direction in which they led their countries. And we're about finished with northern Israel. We're taking it one side at a time. You know, we've talked about this. Saul, David, and Solomon. First three kings of Israel, united kingdom. Kingdom splits after Solomon. And then we have northern Israel, sometimes called Samaria. And we have southern Israel, most of the time called Judah. So we're working our way through one side at a time. And like I said, we're about to finish the northern kingdom of Israel, also known as Samaria. And so we're going to be in 2 Kings 15 today, and that's the primary chapter we'll be in. Let's see who we've got. Lyle, Janie, Gail, Michelle, Norma. Good to see all of you guys with us. And, of course, we're cross-posted onto the nearchurches.com Facebook page. If you have any questions or comments, you can, on both of those pages, use the comment section, and I will acknowledge them when I see them. We are, as you see on the screen, if you're able to see that, maybe watching it casting it on a TV or on a computer monitor. We are at the king Zachariah. Let me pull this up over here. All right, so the last king we looked at when we were together was the second Jeroboam the second, and he was the 13th king of Israel. Well, today we are on Zachariah, and we are on the 14th king of Israel. These last several kings of Israel, again, northern Israel, and as we've said throughout, all these kings of Israel are evil. But as the kingdom's kind of winding down, you really see the depth of depravity of these leaders, and not just the leaders, but you're going to see a pattern develop here. So we'll pay attention to that. But the record of this man, Zechariah, is in 2 Kings chapter 15, verses 8 through 12, and there's not much information here or anywhere else in Scripture about him. Here's what we do know. He's evil, and he was assassinated by the man who would become the next king, Shallum. And that's the pattern you're going to notice here towards the end of the northern kingdom of Israel, is constant conspiracies, coups, and assassinations. So one of the things that we do learn about Zechariah, one of the very few things that we learn about him, is that he is one of the descendants of Jehu. Jehu was one of the previous kings of Israel that we've already talked about. He was anointed by God and for a specific purpose of essentially, you might say, cleaning house. So let me scroll back up here, see if I can get back real quick to, Jehu. He was the 10th king. He reigned for 28 years. And as you go back to 2 Kings chapter 9, it's recorded for us. So just a bit of review here. 2 Kings chapter 9, as it says there, verses 7 through 10, he's going to be appointed for striking, this is 2 Kings 9, verse 7, strike down the house of Ahab your master. So as you read of his 28 years, this is what he does. And because he did that, that's the one good thing that he did. Essentially cleansed Israel of the wicked influence of Ahab and Jezebel. He was promised there in 2 Kings chapter 10 that his lineage would continue until the fourth generation of the king. He'd have 4 descendants upon the throne. Well, Zechariah is the end of that line. Okay, he's the fulfillment of that promise, being the 14th king. And after Zechariah, you're again going to kind of see that it's not following a familial descent, okay? It's not this man preceded or followed his father, and then his son became king, and then his son. It's kind of, I guess you'd say, a mixed bag of kings after Zechariah here. But you notice, and again, we've noted this throughout this study, the very first king of the divided kingdom was Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and he set the standard for sin based on his idolatry. Well, Zachariah here, the 14th king, he continues the same way in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. He only reigns for 6 months, the Bible tells us there in 2 Kings 15, verse 8. It's a very short reign. But he is conspired against, 2 Kings 15, verse 10, and murdered. And so a man by the name of Shallum took his place. And, well, that's it. So, again, the wickedness continues. Shallum takes his place, and again, you have a very short record of this man, 2 Kings chapter 15, verses 13 through 15. He is the 15th king. He reigns for 1 month. And, well, guess what? There's a conspiracy, and he himself is assassinated by a man by the name of Menahem. This is 2 Kings 15 and verse 14. Menahem, the son of Gadi, went up from Tirzah, came to Samaria, and struck Shallum, the son of Jabesh, in Samaria, and killed him, and he reigned in his place. So it's like a free-for-all at this point. And again, that shows you, so a verse I mentioned the last time we were together, Proverbs 14:34, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And you follow this. Again, these are very short accounts, not much information given. But it's like, can I top the guy that was here before me? Can I do a little bit worse than he did? So we read about Menahem here, again, 2 Kings 15, 13 through 15. You get down to verse 15. Now the rest of the acts of Shallum and the conspiracy which he led, indeed, are they not written in the chronicles of the kings of Israel? Then from Tirzah, Menahem attacked. So what he did, what Shallum did to the previous king, Menahem, who will become the next king, does to him. Comes up. Let's see. All who were there in its territories, because they did not surrender, therefore he attacked it. All the women there who were with child, he ripped open. So it's just complete brutality. It's like every man for himself, but Shallum was evil and assassinated by Menahem. Menahem becomes king. And there's a little bit more information here about Menahem. Not a lot of comment to be made, but there is some interesting stuff here that we can dig into. Northern Israel's 16th king, he reigns for 10 years. And notice what the Bible tells us here. 2 Kings 15 and verse... I'll start in verse 19. So the New King James uses this name, Pul, P-U-L. This is an Assyrian king, and you can see on the screen here. He also has another name in the biblical text and in secular history, Tiglath-Pileser III. This is not anything, it's not an Israelite king or a Judah king. This is an outside political enemy. All right? Well, Assyria is growing in power, and when we get to 2 Kings 17, we'll see that probably tomorrow. They're a major oppressor. Well, Menahem is not unaware of that. He knows what's going on. And so Pul, or Tiglath-Pileser III, comes up against the land. He's on his way to conquer different areas. And so Menahem, the king of Israel, takes out 10,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to strengthen the kingdom under his control. Menahem, the king of Israel, is basically fighting for his political life. He's in danger of losing his power. And so, we'll take money and we'll appease this king of Assyria. And, verse 20, Menahem exacted the money from Israel. Now, that phrase there, 2 Kings 15:20, this goes all the way back to the days of Samuel, when Israel requested a king. And Israel was warned at that time, hundreds of years prior to this event here in 2 Kings 15. Listen, you want a king, you're going to get one, but they're going to make slaves of your children, and they're going to start taking money from you. They're going to make you pay taxes. And that's exactly what happens here. He exacted the money from Israel, from all the very wealthy. That's interesting to me, because that's what our political elites do today. You hear these debates, the back and forth between the right and the left, the Democrats and the Republicans, and the solution that the Democratic Party often has for the troubles of the country is we need to raise taxes. The wealthy are not paying their fair share. Well, guess what? 2,800 years ago, you have that same thing. 2 Kings 15:20. He exacted money from Israel, from all the very wealthy, from each man 50 shekels of silver, to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and did not stay there in the land. So you give him enough money and he'll go away. But again, you turn a page or two in your Bible, and here comes Assyria again. There's no amount of money that would satisfy the desire to be more powerful, the desire to capture more land, to have a bigger empire. Money's not enough. And the solution to, hey, let's tax the rich, let's make people pay their fair share, well, that doesn't work out for anybody very well. So you keep reading here. Well, Menahem actually dies. He rested with his father, 2 Kings 15:22. There was no coup against him. He was not assassinated. He just dies. Now, in regard to this king that we're reading about here of Assyria, Pul, or Tiglath-Pileser III, we know, and this king, you can go to like Britannica.com. There are a bunch of different websites that will give you a lot of information on this king, and they kept chronicles. In other words, they kept a record of all the things that they were doing. And this particular king, he reigned from 745 to 727 BC, and he talks about his, his campaigns against like Ammon and Moab and Israel. So not only do you have the biblical text that tells us that, that gives us these historical accounts, but you can actually go into secular history and read the exact same things. And I've talked about this throughout this series of studies. That's one of the important reasons, that's one of the beneficial reasons of studying, when you're studying the Bible, secular history, geography, archaeology, because there are so many accounts just like this one where secular history, it tells the exact same story. It verifies what the Bible already says. And yet these things weren't discovered. Some people even question the existence of certain societies that the Bible mentions, and they've questioned them for some time. Well, then here comes archaeology, and they do some digging, and they find what the Bible's been talking about for 2,000 years. And it's no different here with Tiglath-Pileser III and Assyria. So you can do a little bit of digging on the internet, and find, you can see all this for yourself. Some pretty lengthy articles with this particular king. I forgot about this one. So here's a passage. You turn over a couple of pages to 1 Chronicles chapter 5, and the early chapters of 1 Chronicles are genealogical. They're tracing the history of the nation of Israel from throughout their familial lines. So like 1 Chronicles chapter 1, the first word is Adam. It goes all the way back to Adam, to his son Seth, Enosh, Canaan, Mahalalel. Well, those same genealogical records are found in Genesis chapter 10. So Chronicles, the historical records, Chronicles, traces that line and focuses primarily on the kings of Judah. And of course, we understand as Christians, the significance of that is Jesus. Jesus came from the tribe of Judah. He's of that descent. And so that's the purpose of 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Anyway, you get to these first couple chapters, and it's tracing the families of the 12 tribes of Israel. You get to chapter 5, 1 Chronicles 5, and it begins in verse 23, but it's tracing the families of Manasseh. Manasseh, of course, was one of the two sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. Listen to 1 Chronicles 5:25, talking about Israel. It says, and they were unfaithful to the God of their fathers and played the harlot after the gods of the peoples of the land, whom God had destroyed before them. So the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, that is, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria. He carried the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh into captivity. He took them to Hala-Habor, Hara, and the river of Gozan to this day. So you do have this brief record in 2 Kings 15, but then the Chronicles records it as well in 1 Chronicles chapter 5, and then again, you have the benefit of secular history. So all of that comes together, and we see the fullness of this record. Good morning, Susan. All right, well, back to 2 Kings 15. So Menahem dies. He's not assassinated. The next king is a man by the name of Pekahiah. Verses, 2 Kings 15, verses 23 through 26. Northern Israel's 17th king. He reigns for 2 years. He's assassinated in a military coup. Not a lot to add here. You notice, 2 Kings 15, verse 25, Pekah the son of Remaliah, an officer of his, conspired against him and killed him in Samaria in the citadel of the king's house. And then it gives some of his, some of his associates, people who helped him. He killed him and reigned in his place. Now the rest of the acts that Pekahiah and all he did, are they not written in the books of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? Well, again, he reigns 2 years. He does evil in the sight of the Lord. He continues in the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat. I don't know how many times we've read that this king is evil and he continues in the sins of Nebat. Well, anyway, we have, so looking at the biblical text here, and I'll just close that down. That's the last king we're going to talk about today. The video will be a little bit shorter. So next we've got Pekah, and again, we'll talk about him tomorrow. And then you jump over to 2 Kings chapter 17 to the last king, and I that's kind of a not really like an appointed king. It's more appointed by the people who are in control, which is really Assyria. But his name is Hoshea, and that's it. So we'll deal with that tomorrow because 2 Kings 17 does a historical look at the downhill track of Israel, and then they're being taken off into Assyrian captivity, which took place about 722 BC. So when you look at these previous kings that we've been talking about, particularly Menahem and his dealings with Tiglath-Pileser III, well, history tells us when he reigned, 745 to 727. So when we get down to Hoshea and the ending of the kingdom of Israel, northern Israel, we know when that was, about approximately 700 years before the birth of Christ. So anyway, it's some interesting stuff, and we get to the end here, and then what we'll do, because the rest of 2 Kings covers Judah. Basically, 2 Kings 18 through 25, where that book ends, and then we have to jump over into 2 Chronicles. We'll get back to, we'll get into, rather, the kings of the southern kingdom of Israel, Judah. And that'll be a totally different story. There's some similarities, yes, but totally different track of history between northern Israel and southern Israel. All right, guys. Well, it's good to see all of you here today, and hope to see you back here tomorrow at 11 o'clock, getting back into some normalcy. I was gone for the lectures at Memphis. I missed last Monday. Hopefully we can get back to Monday through Wednesday and not be missing stuff. So I appreciate you guys being on here today. I hope you have a good day, and hope to see you back here tomorrow at 11 o'clock.